Call this Harlem School Board meeting to order. If I could get a roll call, please. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. Call to order the regular board meeting at 6 p.m. Roll call, please. Here.
Here. My mic is off. Mr. Sterling?
Here.
Mr. Meister?
He's not here.
Jill Brogan?
Here.
Mrs. Meeks here.
Chris Arduino, recording secretary.
Julie Morris, Superintendent.
Michelle Erd, Curriculum and Instruction.
Josh Rand, Business and Operations. Josh Rand, Business and Operations.
Scott Rollinson, Human Resources.
Students from
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
No school creed? No school saying? Okay. Okay. It's okay. Need a motion to approve the agenda with the following changes. No student travel, 10A1. No facility request, 10B2. No consent agenda, 11B and 11C.
What was the last one?
Pardon me?
What was the last one?
11C,
At 11. Okay, thank you.
B and C, yeah. I'll do a motion.
motion.
Second.
Mrs. Lawrence? Aye. Mr. Sterling?
Aye.
Mr. Meister? No, he's not here. Let me cross it off. Sorry. Jill Brogan?
Aye.
Mrs. Meeks? Aye. Mrs. Brogan?
Aye. Don't forget to unmute when you.
Okay.
Can I get a motion to approve the board meeting minutes for regular and closed minutes of September 28th, 2020, and public hearing minutes of September 28th, 2020?
Motion?
Second.
Mrs. Lawrence?
Aye.
Mr. Sterling?
Aye.
Jill Brogan?
Aye.
Mrs. Meeks? Aye. Mrs. Brogan?
Aye. And awards and recognition, we'll turn it over to Jason again. Or, what?
She already did that.
Yeah, I included him.
Well, good evening, everyone. It's my privilege and honor this evening to introduce you to two very special people and great partners of the Harlem School District. I have Kelly Saunders and Crystal Draftborn, who are with the North Park Water District. As I mentioned at the previous board meeting, they had donated 2,200 water bottles to the students of the district. We've done this the past few years, but recognize that this year would be especially important to have water bottles for students as they use bottle fillers and not using the drinking fountains as they have in the past. And so these two have been instrumental in the partnership that we've had. As we mentioned before as well, they were super helpful when we went through all of our lead testing, water testing, and they worked closely with Josh on that and really did a lot of stuff for us in regards to the water testing that took place as well. And so we just thought it was appropriate tonight to actually show you the faces. We talked about these people before on the North Park Water District. And so on behalf of the school board, the district, we just want to thank you for the partnership and thank you for support. I know the water bottles are hit. We've had some people who reached out and we send a thank you card as well from one of our schools. So again, thank you so much. So let's give them a round of applause. I don't think they want to say anything, but I think we're good. They said they were good. So we have a certificate for you. We won't do the whole photo thing, but come up and we can get your certificate and
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
thank you. We won't do a shake.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
We're gonna shake
Long
hands
distance
too, but-
shake?
Yeah, right.
All of us, so, and maybe one more thing.
Thank you.
Next up, I'd like to take a moment to recognize two of our board members. We have two members that have maintained their master status, and so obviously we want to thank these two individuals for their hard work in doing so. And so congratulations and thank you to Evelyn and Sue for maintaining school board master level.
Thank you.
Got one more. And then we also want to recognize Sue. The Illinois Association of School Boards is providing this plaque here that recognizes Sue as a Leadership Academy Fellow for 2020. So again, thank you to Sue for her hard work and dedication to being a board member.
Thank you. Okay, and next is comments from the community. And we have no in-person ones, but we do have several that were emailed to us. So Julie will read them. We'll allow 3 minutes to read them. And then unfortunately, we'll have to stop. Some of them are a little long. So let's read fast, Julie. Do you want to unmute your mic?
I'm ready.
Mhm.
So we have five public comments for this evening's meeting. Now, there have been people over the last, since this was posted last week, providing their information and input to the board through email. But these were ones that were specifically public comments for tonight's meeting. So the first one is from Megan Farr, and she states that in response to Julie Morris's proposal, do you know the social implications of reducing face-to-face time in schools? Younger children learn to develop social skills during school that are important for their future well-being. This includes practicing compromise, relationship building, and practicing effective communication. These skills are essential in developing self-assurance, confidence, and resiliency. Without such skills, children are at a greater risk for mental health compromise and failure in future life challenges. Excuse me. For many adolescents, this pandemic has brought about loneliness, fear, and powerlessness. Many parents are being forced to think about making the choice to work to pay bills or stay home. In turn, not being able to work to help our children with every single step of remote learning, all in hopes that they won't fall even further behind after the last 2-month quarantine last spring. What an extremely devastating situation to be faced with. Having the option to choose remote learning or in-person learning for our children should continue to be a parent's choice. We as parents and guardians understand the benefits and risks of each of these decisions. Our children are thriving in a physical, structured school setting, and the positive COVID cases in Harlem School District are extremely low. As both a mother of 3 school-aged children and an early childhood education provider, I recognize the importance of both physical and emotional needs. I understand the desire to value physical health needs. However, I would encourage the Harlem School Board to think about the long-term mental health effects of restricting face-to-face school time. Please consider allowing our children to continue to thrive in physical environment of schools that fosters our children's education. Let's continue to keep our children in school.
I'm sorry, Julie, who did you say that?
That is Megan Farr. Our second one is from Sheila Wentland. Please consider leaving our children in schools. These children's lives and education are at stake if we continue to let this virus control us. It's proven they are not learning by remote. They need to stay in school. The parents who have chosen remote learning can stay and do remote learning. But there's a reason the parents who have sent their children to school. They work jobs themselves and are unable to spend 8 to 10 hours when they get home at night to homeschool their children. We all pay our taxes and our viewpoints on this decision should count. Please consider other alternatives besides taking these children out of the school again. Woodstock is going back to school because the children aren't learning. To my knowledge, the numbers are low in the district and the recovery rate of this virus is 98%. Most of everything about this virus is fear. Let's keep these kids in school. Again, that was Sheila Wentland. This one is cut off, so I'll do my best to fill in any missing words. All right, ready? To whom it may concern. First, I would like to start by saying thank you for reading this and giving me the opportunities to speak for the dedication to our community. I'll keep this short and would like to ask that you really think about what this will mean, not only for the students and over if we were making the right decision. After speaking with many teachers, principals, and parents, are we doing what is best in the best interest of us as well? We're going to feel the effects of this pandemic for decades. Please take into consideration how this is a choice for them. We chose to be in person and are aware of the potential risks that this may include. You have always, with the number of cases so low, none that have been contracted at school, we would like our kids to be in school. Thank you for your time tonight. We appreciate your hard work and dedication but I'm not, I don't know, I'm sorry. I don't know how to finish that. Thank you again, and I hope to see you tonight. Enjoy the rest of the day. Kelly Black, B-L-A-C-K. She wasn't sure if she was going to make it tonight, so she's not here. Correct. Okay. Comment number 4. This is from Kate Rufa. I would like to submit this public comment as an employee of the Harlem School District and as a parent. Thank you for taking time to read it. I applaud the decision to go fully remote as proposed by Dr. Morris. However, I urge you to consider making this move sooner. With the recent tragic passing of a staff member due to COVID, the sustained higher positivity rate in our region, and the confirmation that COVID remains in the air for an extended time, I have increased concern for the well-being of our staff, students, and families. Near daily, we are told of a new staff having to quarantine, of positive cases at our schools, and face challenges finding subs to cover our swiftly emptying classrooms. I do not know if we can make it all the way to Thanksgiving. Please vote yes to approve the remote learning plan proposed by Dr. Morris, and please consider extending the remote plan to start sooner rather than later for the sake of everyone's health and safety. Regards, Caitlin Rufa, sorry.
No, we typically don't make comments regarding this, but do you know anything about a staff member dying due to COVID?
There was a former substitute.
Okay. so it's
former
not- okay.
substitute. No.
I was aware of that, but
Yeah,
it sounded like it was someone presently employed by
Yeah.
everyone, so I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah.
Thank you. You can proceed.
okay. And our final, we have one. Oh, who's here? Okay, got it. Okay, so our fifth comment is from Megan Hembro. Dear Harlem Board of Education, my name is Megan Hembro. I am a librarian at Parker Center. Prior to working at Parker, I taught first grade at Loves Park Elementary. Having spent my entire Harlem career working with younger learners, I always describe my work as a privilege. Every day, people give us the best thing they have, their children, and expect us to do good with them. I'm contacting you as a Harlem employee, but also as a resident taxpayer and voter in the Harlem School District. I have read the proposal for full remote learning. My support for this plan is strong. It is prudent and wise for us to make a move to full remote learning over the upcoming holiday season. Making this move will protect students, staff, and our Harlem community. As you know, Parker Center has been greatly impacted by COVID-19 this school year. In fact, for many students, today was only their 7th day of in-person instruction. We talk a lot about the impact of trauma on students. It is not a far leap to conclude that COVID-19 has caused trauma for many Parker students and their families this school year. Parker Center staff, myself included, have also felt the traumatic impact of COVID-19 this school year. I fervently hope that no other school experiences the uncertainty and turmoil that COVID-19 can cause. This full remote learning plan is a solid step toward that hope. I urge you to approve this plan in its entirety, unchanged tonight. Thank you for your consideration. Again, Megan Hembro. Those are the ones that have been included for me to read this evening. And so do you want me to just share?
Do you want to?
Mike? That would be great.
Mrs. Lansing?
Mike, is it Sebald?
Yeah, Mark Siebel.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, Mark, not Mike.
Thanks for
I
the
was.
audience. So today it's being recommended to this board for students to be denied the opportunity for in-person learning from November 30th to January 15th. This recommendation is being made based on a speculative assumption that positive COVID-19 cases will increase during the holidays. Even more concerning, the recommendation implies that the mask wearing, distancing, symptom screening, and cleaning protocols approved by this board are inadequate to keep our teachers and students safe. School closure goes against the wishes of the majority of the families within the district. In July, families informed the district of their preference for in-person or remote learning. On August 3rd, the district publicized 67% of the total student population preferred in-person learning. Yes, positive cases have been on the rise, yet the positivity metric is inherently biased and skews ability to make a data-driven decision regarding our school safety. Decisions based on positive cases alone does not represent the reducing severity of this disease and the decreasing risk upon our community. According to the CDC, the death rate for COVID-19 continues to decline in Illinois and across the United States as more therapy, drugs, and treatments come out from living infections. On April 21st, the CDC reported 7-day rolling average of, sadly, 79 daily deaths in Illinois. Currently, the CDC is reporting Illinois has only a reduced 7-day rolling average of only 30 deaths. The declining death rate makes evident our state and nation is ready to fight against this disease due to the growing availability of effective drugs and treatments, which are reducing the critical health effects of COVID-19. While the recommendation for school closure places undue hardship on working families financially and limits community members' ability to work, the greatest hardship is being placed on our students' educational development. Remote learning is exponentially ineffective the younger the student's age, and also leaves our special needs and low-income families behind. In your decision, please consider these critical aspects of learning and the negative long-term effects continued isolation from the classroom will have on our children's learning and development. Justification for closing our schools and denying in-person learning for our students is not only based on assumption portrayed by a skewed COVID-19 positivity metric, but also pessimistic due to the implication that those CDC guidelines and the board-approved COVID-19 safety protocols are inadequate. Yes, COVID-19 can be a serious disease, yet data shows that drug therapies and treatments available today are decreasing overall risk. Our community members need the schools open in order to maintain employment, and our children need in-person learning to effectively develop. I humbly implore each one of you to reject the recommendation and deny the in-person learning access to our students and to continue following the protocols that were outlined in the Reopening Schools Family Guide. Myself, the majority of members of this community, desire to send our children to school and are committed to following the safety protocols to keep our students and teachers safe. Respectfully, I thank each of you for the opportunity to speak and extend my gratitude to your service. Thank you.
Thank you.
When was it sent? I believe we have one more that was missed.
Okay. Repeating this.
You said there was two more in the
No, she
spam.
already read them.
Oh, okay.
You're welcome. Oh, here it is. Okay. Am I on, Jason?
Yes.
Okay. Are you ready to roll?
Sorry, I apologize. I turned my mic off.
Here, I got it.
I got it. We're good.
Okay, this is from Teresa Clausen. All right. Julie Morris's proposal is not based on the reality of the numbers in schools, but is based on a theory of people gathering over the holidays causing a suspected increase in positive cases. With this one-size-fits-all proposal, she is forcing a mandatory quarantine on everyone and is leaving behind the children who cannot productively function in a remote learning format, such as students in the younger student population, special education, those whose family dynamics cannot support such a change, and also our at-risk youth who will now be stuck in another isolated setting for 2 times longer than the normal winter break period. My suggestion is to consider the numbers of each school within the district, which were released in emails to the parents at each school, ranging from 21 for the year in Parker to 0 at Loves Park. This shows we have a third of schools that are high risk, a third are moderate risk, and a third are low risk, based on the total number of positive cases reported by the district for the year thus far. These numbers were collected based on positive cases of both in-school and remote learning situations. It would be interesting to see these numbers split into in-person versus remote categories and how many people are in each school for a clear picture. Even so, the fact is, while the threat of an increase due to holiday activities is a possibility, and the safety of the staff and students is an utmost importance, we are still just in the beginning stages of implementing in-person learning. So no one can say with absolute certainty what the best solution is at this time. Some of our kids were already out of school for 2 to 4 weeks quarantining and remote learning, while others are just finally getting settled into the routine of what the new normal is for the classroom setting. While this year has proven difficult on so many levels for everyone, I believe we as parents all empathize with how arduous this school year has been for administrators and staff, including the many changes, increased responsibilities, and terrifying unknowns that have been bestowed upon them in the face of this pandemic. It may sometimes feel like a thankless job, but I assure you there are parents who are eternally grateful for everyone who is giving their all to offer a quality education to our children within their classrooms, while also trying to ensure their safety in such unusual times. Now is not the time to decide to shut down for another 6 weeks and prevent our children and opportunities they deserve to learn and thrive. While the intentions of this...
Time has expired. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I believe that is all of the comments from the community that we're aware of. with that, we'll turn it over to Josh for approval of the bills.
All right, thank you very much. Payable fees of $112.70. There was one payroll this period for a total of $2,804,921.50 for total expenditures of $3,435,034.20. Split out by fund, the education fund paid $2,967,754.40. The tort fund paid $5,853.18. The operations and maintenance fund paid $194,516.51. The transportation fund paid $158,754.83. The MRF Social Security Fund paid $108,155.28. Again, for total expenditures of $3,435,034.20. Are there any unanswered bill questions?
Yeah, it's got me in presentation mode.
It's not presented.
Can you see me or there's just a black
Yes,
circle?
No, there's two things, one for presenter and one for regular.
I don't want to hold up, Josh.
So I need a motion and a second to approve the bills.
Motion.
Second.
Mr. Sterling.
All right.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
September 28th. All right, try this again. Board meeting October 26th at 6 p.m. Next regular policy committee meeting is October 19th at 6 p.m. First, I'd like to thank North Park Water for their generous donation of the water bottles for our students. I'd also like to thank all of the public comments that we've received and all the emails that we've received in our email the last few days. There's a lot of valid, good points that go along with most of these emails, if not all of these emails. This is not a decision that any board member or Julie as the administration team takes lightly. It's brought up now for discussion so that we can figure out what we should do moving forward, what we shouldn't do moving forward. So with that, I just want to reassure everybody that this is not something that any one of us take lightly. Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Next Equity and Social Justice Committee meeting is November 4th at 6:45 p.m. at the Harlem High School in the Commons. And with that, Jason, thank you for the plaque. Congratulations, Evelyn, on maintaining your master board. And with that, I will turn it over to Mrs. Lawrence.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to thank everybody who sent in comments.
Try this again. I'd like to thank everybody who sent in comments from the community today. We listened to those and really pay attention. Like Sue said, we are taking this decision very seriously. I want to thank the young ladies who came in, who had donated the 2,200 water bottles. As always, I love the artwork in the boardroom. So if you're one of the students whose artwork is up, great job. I did go to Loves Park Elementary today, and I had a conversation with the principal, Mrs. Clark, regarding trauma and the impacts of trauma on the brain. And that was very interesting. She always makes for great conversation related to trauma. I would like to thank the Rock Cut students for leading the pledge today. I would like to congratulate Sue and Evelyn on maintaining their master status. And I wanted to personally thank Megan Farr, Kelly Black, Kate Rufa, Megan Hemborough, Mark Siebold, and Teresa, can't even read, Lawson? Okay. Further comments, I would also like to thank the number of people who have emailed us over the last week. I know these are difficult times, so thank you for taking your time to sit down and help us understand the situation that you're facing personally. Your input is valuable and very respected. I think that as a board, we have a responsibility to our students to provide a top-notch education. And as a board, I think that we will continue to consider the whole child, which includes the social, emotional, and educational pieces. We started this year under the same circumstances that we're in now. So we're definitely familiar with that. And I just would like to remind everybody that regardless of what the board determines is best interest of the district to move forward, that because we are in a pandemic, that there are powers that be above us that could close down the schools tomorrow. So if you don't have a backup plan yet, please make sure that you have a backup plan in place moving forward, because there are other individuals who may shut the schools down also. So just keep that in mind, and thank you. And my last item is the Education Committee meeting is October 14th at 6 p.m. It will be at the Harlem High School in W145. And that ends my report.
Thank you. And your report, Mrs. Meeks?
Good evening, everyone. Okay, first I would like to thank the Rock Cut students for doing a wonderful Pledge of Allegiance this evening in Spanish and English. Really nice, did a wonderful job. Also, I want to thank the North Park Water for the women for coming out this evening and for the donation of the water that they've donated through this year. And congratulations to you, Sue, on your Leadership Academy Award and your Master School Board maintained. And then also I want to thank the community, the parents, teachers, students, everyone, you're voicing your concerns over this pandemic about going remote, and for the notes, the letters that we received tonight. This is really hard for all of us, and we're trying to do our best to make sure that we can do everything by making the right decision. And sometimes the decision might not be right to some people, but just remember, we're taking it to heart and we're doing the best thing that we can, because this is something that's new to everybody and we don't know which way to go because it's constantly changing. But just because we might not make the decision that you want doesn't mean that we don't care. We're trying to make the decision best fit and suited for our students at this particular time right now, and it can eventually change overnight. So never think that we don't go above and beyond to try to do and make the right decisions for our students and the community. And I want to thank, all the staff administrators and everybody for doing what you're trying to do. And I know it's hard work, but just remember, you're not going unnoticed. We appreciate each and every one of you. And let me see. I think that's all I have to report. And thank you all.
Okay, thank you, Evelyn. I want to go back to Patty.
Yes, I just had one thing to add. When we did our comments from the community earlier, I would like people to realize that those were comments that were sent in to be read into the record. So we read them in their entirety, and it is not our job to screen those or to change any of the content or the intent of that letter. So for those of you you who are familiar, who listened to those, I just wanted you to make sure that you understood that is not the board's decision. Those were comments that were submitted by the community, and they were read in their entirety, regardless of the context. It does not necessarily represent the Harlem Board of Education views. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Sterling, your report.
First, I wanted to thank the Rock Cut Schools and their rendition of the Pledge of Allegiance. It's something for them to be able to do it in both languages and actually do it fluently as good as they can. I want to thank all the community that reached out and emailed and called and saw me on the street just to voice their concerns both directions on what's going on with their jobs, their kids, everything that this decision or the next few weeks have for us. It's not something that any of us take lightly. Safety is always a concern. Children's education is always our priority. I just want everybody to know that, again, we might decide something here today that is for in November, but come Saturday, the governor is going to come out with new rules for our area because we will still be above 8%. So mitigations will be coming further down, but that does not mean that we have control over anything other than what we can talk about as a community. I would like to thank Terrell and Jeremy Boyce for contacting us for the business services and walking me through the EOS program that you guys have going on. It was enlightening to see the actual numbers and our growth over time that you guys have built up over the years. So I'm happy to bring that forward today for us to consider. And our next business services meeting is November 4th, 2020 at 6 p.m. That ends my report.
First, I would like to thank Rock Cut Schools. They did a wonderful job. Thank you to North Park Water District for donating all the water bottles. Those are greatly appreciated. I want to thank or say congratulations to Evelyn and Sue on the master board member, and then also Sue on the Leadership Academy. I want to thank you to everyone who reached out, the phone calls, the emails, from staff to parents. It is a lot to think about. There's a lot going into the decision. And that is all I have.
Thank you.
With that, I'll turn it over to Mickey for her report.
Thank you. Over the next few meetings, I'll be bringing forward different programs, kind of giving you guys updates. Tonight, the update is on our multilingual programs. In the past, this has been known as our English learners. Multilingual is the term that the state uses at this time. The school district has 283 multilingual students, and they speak a total of 29 different languages. The most dominant language in the district is Spanish. We have 181 of our multilingual students who speak Spanish. The next is Serbian at 19, and then Vietnamese at 18. Vietnamese is the one that's probably growing the fastest. It was only at 4 or 5 students just a couple of years ago. And so the increase to 18 is quite the jump. As far as the district goes, we've stayed pretty even, right around 4% of our population being multilingual students. So when you have a student who takes their home language survey, says there's a language other than English spoken home, they are tested, and if they qualify, they receive one of 2 different types of services. Either TBE, which stands for Transitional Bilingual Education, or TPI, which is Transitional Program of Instruction. And the way that program is determined is based on the number of students who speak the same language in a building. So if you have 20 or more students who speak, and Spanish ends up being the only one that we have over 20 in a building, then we are to offer what is known as a TBE program. Now, a few years ago, we used to offer TBE services at Loves Park, Maple, and Rock Cut. And what we found is that our population would be above 20 and then it'd be below 20. And it kept fluctuating. So the students were not really receiving an education that was really helping them become fluent in both languages. That's when we came together and created our OLA program, our Harlem Language Academy. So we have put the students at Rock Cut and at Parker Center so that they can receive those bilingual services all the way through elementary school. And this is our first year in 7th grade. So what our OLA program looks like is that in kindergarten and first grade, it is a 90-10 model, which means 90% of the student's day is spent using Spanish as the language spoken in the classroom, and 10% is English. So in KN1, you have about 20 minutes a day that's in English, and then also the specials, art, music, and PE is also in English. During that time of English, what's happening is we're trying to make connections in both languages for the students. The research shows that the stronger students L1, their first language, is that as they bring that other language in, it bridges nicely. So if we can teach the students in Spanish how to read as we bring in the English, that those skills transfer over nicely. In 2nd grade is when we move to a 20-10 model. I'm sorry, 2010, try that again, 80-20 model. And that's 45 minutes a day. We bring in our English language arts and writing into their day. Still with those specials always being in English all the way through. 3rd and 4th grade is when we go to a 60-40, and that's when we bring English in. And when we've looked at our data, when we've had the PARCC test before, what we have seen is that our students in the OLA program have done very well in math and that 3rd grade level, as well as the ELA. So we are seeing that those skills are transferring over. 6th and 7th, we have one teacher who teaches in English and the other one that teaches in Spanish, and the students are switched. They're at a 50-50 model. So based on the content, it depends on the language, and then we're constantly working on those skills. As I said earlier, I'm pretty excited that this is our first year of having OLA at the middle school. And all their classes are taught in English, except for they receive Spanish language arts, and they also have science in Spanish. So the ultimate goal is that we want to have students who are not just bilingual, but biliterate when it's all said and done. We want them to be able to read, write, understand, and speak the 2 languages. So that really kind of talks about our OLA programs. And we are very fortunate to have that dual language program. The ultimate goal is to try to have even models, but the first priority always goes to our students who qualify for the TBE services. As far as our TPI program, the Transitional Program of Instruction, those are for our students who speak languages other than Spanish, or if we would have somebody in a building and have less than 20 students who speak Spanish. What's unique about that program, where we talked about our TBE program, the students in there speak Spanish or English, is the two languages. But in a TPI program, as long as they are at that same level of proficiency as far as understanding of English, you may have multiple languages working together, because what we're trying to teach them are the skills of English as a second language. One of the big things that we have seen as kind of a change in this area is that we have had an increase in our newcomers, and our newcomers have been within the first 2 years. And so one of the things that Ms. Dominguez has done here is really worked on getting some services, especially at the high schools, where we're seeing an increase the most as far as our newcomers go. And so we are offering the English for newcomers, because to be teaching Shakespeare to people who are learning the English language is not necessarily the best way for them to be using their time, and it's not what they need at that given moment. And so she's really worked on some programming changes to be able to provide some newcomer services. At our elementary level, it's just really focusing on some English acquisition there. Regardless if the student is a TBE or TPI in either one of those programs, our ultimate goal is to help students get the seal of biliteracy. And when Mr. Mingus was hired, that was one of the first things I said. I'd love to see us have students get the seal of biliteracy. It's an honor that's we get from the state, and students have to show that they are proficient in the language of English as well as another language. And as soon as I told her, she said, I've done this before, I know what I'm doing, and she just jumped right in and got going on this. So students can use either the Access or the SAT to show English proficiency. And then same thing with their second language, they can use AP or the assessment of performance towards proficiency in language, the AAPPL. And if they can show that they're proficient in both, then they have the, they can get this medallion, and then they also get something on their diploma that shows that they have acquired proficiency in both languages. It's a definite honor. In 2019, we had 7 students. In 2020, we had 8. And this year we have had 14 students who have applied. The 2 languages that they are applying for is Spanish and German. So we have our German class, and so we have students who take all the way through German 4, and they can also have that, take that as the AP assessment, or like I said, the AAPPL. I always have to look up the letters because I cannot remember, and show that they have proficiency there. So hopefully we get a few more than we have had before, but I need to give her a lot of credit because Ms. Dominguez has worked really hard, along with our world language department at the high school and our counselors on increasing those numbers there. Something that's unique to this, to the grant that goes along with it is what's known as the BPAC, which is our Bilingual Parent Advisory Committee. This is something that several years ago, when I ended up taking over ELL, it was one of the things the state said we need to have a BPAC. And so we followed those rules, and we really focused on our families who had students in the TBE program. Since Ms. Dominguez has come, she has really worked on empowering the parents, and they have invited also parents whose students are part of the TPI program. And they have worked on some cultural events. The last cultural event they had over 400 people show up. It was in the auditorium. It was awesome. She and Mr. Reineke emceed the occasion and had families, and the students were showcased and singing and dancing and all sorts of just wonderful things going on. But the parents took the lead on that, and she's really helped support and empower them. Something that is also unique about the BPAC is that in order for the grant, which is the Language Instruction Education Program grant, we refer to it as Title III. Before we can submit that, the BPAC president sits down with Mrs. Dominguez and goes over how those grant funds are spent. That is a requirement of the grant, and that is also to make sure that we're getting the parent feedback there. And so there are a couple requirements within that grant. One of the requirements is that every one of our teachers in the program have to have 2 professional development opportunities. They can go to a conference that has 2 different opportunities within the conference, which is what we typically do, or sometimes they find different ones on best practices to support. The other part is that part of the funds have to be used for private parochial students who qualify in the area. For us, St. Bridget is the only one that has had any students in the past few years. Concordia is the other school in our area, but they have not had students who, filling out the home language survey, have indicated a language other than English. Something a little unique this year is that St. Bridget has asked for us to train their teacher who has the ESL endorsement on how to give the assessment so that they have a better understanding of the students in their building as well. So we work collaboratively with them to determine how their resources will be spent. And the state comes up with that allocation each year based on the number of students. But tonight you see that there is a recommendation for a para, and that is because we have received another newcomer into our district. We have already maxed out that Ola K classroom, and we want to make sure that the student receives support. Something that's unique about the Ola program as well, whenever you have a dual program, the state says you can only have 90% of what is the required, or whatever is the number of students in our classes. So for us, it's 25 at K, so you can only have 90%. Because we have more students who qualify, that's why we have an additional person in that classroom right now, a para in there. That's a requirement as part of the grant and the TBE education. So figured since we're bringing that together today, asking for that para to kind of give you guys an understanding of there are these different requirements to go along with it. And the big change for us right now is the number of newcomers and trying to make sure that we get them the right supports in place. If we do get an opening in that TBE classroom, in that Ola classroom, that student will be moved into Ola, and we'll determine how to best use the para from that point forward. Paras is always something that we tend to need in this district. So there's not a concern with that. But I do want to thank Ms. Dominguez for all that she has done to improve the programming for our multilingual students, as well as our teachers really put a lot of time and effort into everything that they do, making sure that they're communicating well with families. And just wanted to tell you a little bit about their program tonight. Are there any questions? There are no questions. That ends my report. Thank you.
All right, thank you. The first item tonight is a recommendation to approve a resolution declaring surplus property for the Instructional Services Department. Are there any questions on the surplus? Okay. My second item is a recommendation to approve the estimated annual 2020 tax levy. We did a run through in business services, so I'll kind of hit the highlights. This isn't approval of the estimated amount. We'll bring the actual final vote in November. So if you have the electronic document up, the fourth page is the tax levy timeline. So we presented it last Wednesday. Tonight, the board will make a determination whether it intends to levy more than 5% or less than 5%, which I'm recommending less than 5%. It would be placed and discussed at the November Business Services meeting, and then ask the board to adopt the 2020 tax levy at the November 10th board meeting. It's required to be filed by the county clerk on December 29th, which is a Tuesday. Pages 5, 6, and 7 just explain the budget and levy cycle. That's an annual cycle that we go through. And then page 8 is a page that's the Winnebago County limiting rate. It's the calculation estimate. So the county gives us what the annual cost of living is, which is 2.3%. What they're projecting the property valuation to be, which is line E on there, or 674 million, which is a 5.1% increase in valuation, which is good. That's the highest it's been in a while. New property is estimated to be about 3.2 million, which is almost double the previous year. So most of these numbers don't include the abatement with the property tax relief grant because we have to levy like that didn't happen, if that makes sense. And I'll kind of explain that as we go through this also. So the CPI estimate with the new property, the county's estimating about 1.24 million more in property taxes. That's before the bonds. So if you flip to the next page, page 9, this shows the levy for 2019 or request, what the extension was with the property tax relief grant added back so you can compare it apples to apples. And then what this year's levy request is at this point. You look down towards the bottom of that, it'll say bond and interest. Last year's bond and interest payment was $5,778,000. That drop off that we've been waiting for is here, and this year's payment is $2,520,000, or a reduction in bond payment of $3,257,000 this year. So that's good. So a lot of how this levy is going to look and what ends up on the tax bills will depend on, is there a second year abatement, and what does the property tax relief grant look like? I was ready to bring that resolution, but the council said ISB wasn't giving real firm details on what that property tax relief grant looks like for this year. So until we get a little more clarity and I can give the board exactly what that is, we pulled the resolution off for tonight. So based on the county's estimate and where our bonds are, if the property tax relief grant were to happen, we're estimating about a 4.39% reduction in the tax levy again for next year. Now, the property tax relief grant is a 2-year thing. So if we rebate for the second year, in the third year, there would be some, that amount would increase back the next year. But those bond payments would stay down, if that makes any sense, because each year's levy is based on the previous year. But for these 2 property tax relief grant years, that amount is added back into that calculation. But after that, it wouldn't be. So if property tax relief grant and we don't abate, then the increase would be 5.1%. So you would have the abatement coming off, but then the bond payments coming back down. So that's kind of the discussion or the point right now, but the abatement really isn't. We have to do the levy like the abatement doesn't exist, and then we bring that back if the board approves that abatement at a later time. Does that make sense? Is there any questions on that? I know that can be confusing. So if the property tax relief grant happens or we do the abatement, the taxes will go down over $2 million again. So they went down about $3 million last year. So if you flip to page 10, because we talk a lot about tax rate too, and our tax rate has been falling. So there's a couple things that will continue to go ahead. It's titled Levy Recommendation, and it's got tax rates on it. That's page 10 of the PDF. I don't know if that helps. Okay. So last year's tax rate is 7.1472. If you see here, it shows 7.28, but remember that's the request. What the county projects out, if the property tax relief grant were to happen, is 6.50 for a tax rate, which is good. Without the property tax relief grant, it's projected to be almost identical to what it was last year on the tax rate. So we have until March. The county would not be happy if we waited until March to tell them if we were abating or not. At this point, I told Pam to put that resolution in the November business services discussion. So when we get there, I'll reach back out and see if we're comfortable and ready for that. Probably December. I would like to have it done before the end of the year. Worst case, I would say January. I don't see it going to February, but I'll try, and if we feel comfortable, do it by December. So overall, I know there's a little bit of uncertainty because we don't know where the state's at with the abatement, but overall, I think this is good news because we see the debt dropping down, the rate either staying flat or coming down. So I think that's good progress. The rest of these pages really are just documents and resolutions that reflect those same numbers or copies of last year's documents. So tonight I'm recommending that we approve the estimated levy, which is under 5% on that, to move forward to the next phase. Are there any questions on the 2020 estimated tax levy? Okay. My next item is a recommendation to approve a collaboration agreement with Equal Opportunity Schools, or EOS, for the sustained equity phase for a cost of $14,500 at Harlem High School for FY21, plus the cost of travel for EOS. As Mike mentioned, Jeremy Boyce joined us through a Google Meets at Business Services and laid out some of the data and the progress that the high school and AP programs have made with EOS. We also attached some of that data to the board meeting tonight. And Mr. Yarbrough is here to speak if there's questions on that too. Are there any questions on the EOS program that the total amount is 14.5? Yeah, it's
Sure, would you like to speak?
You're muted.
Have him talk just a little bit about it and add to it as well.
I would appreciate that. Thank you. I'm sorry, I realized I was muted, so I'm going to repeat the question this was sent back to the committee, Business Services Committee, for additional information for EOS. So I just want an update on exactly what we are receiving for that amount of money. So I don't know how Terrell's going to present, given that we're videoed, but I would appreciate an update. Thank you, Josh. Thank you, Josh. I just don't know. We're still working out the
All
welcome,
right.
Terrell.
Can you hear me? Okay, so I think the biggest thing, and Dr. Boyce obviously does a really great job of laying out the data. If you had an opportunity to look at the data, but our partnership with EOS over the years, in my opinion, specifically with our students, have given our students the opportunity to have that confidence and feel that confidence to take an advanced placement course if they choose to, because with equal opportunity schools, the biggest thing is getting rid of that notion that an AP student is like can only be a particular like type of kid, right? And during the work with EOS, specifically with our staff, and then reaching out to our kids as well, we've changed that. I mean, we've gotten rid of prereqs, that were serving as barriers for kids who wanted to take, AP courses. We've connected with students who didn't feel confident, in their abilities, but they had the abilities, being able to, through student insight cards as well, that was developed through EOS, identify kids through their teachers who thought that they had ability to take advanced placement courses, but just didn't, for whatever reason was just holding back. And we've changed that. Now we have kids who normally wouldn't have taken an AP course that are taking AP courses now. So it's really helped us. And then two, another thing that we've taken advantage of with our partnership with Equal Opportunity Schools is to be able to network other districts as well, and then see what they're doing just around equity and things like that. And it's helped us to bring back just different professional developments and things to our staff that our staff has benefited from as well.
So I'm going to apologize because I just saw some data today that I hate doing this at the last minute, but I just briefly started looking at it. This is actually an item that is on the education committee tomorrow night, is to look at the AP data. So I think that based on the information in those slides, I can give a brief kind of update of what the data says. But I think that data should be something that the board has readily available to them when they make the decision. And I realize we've already put this off once, but just my initial reaction to the data today was that yes, we're getting more kids into AP classes. I believe the number was 721. However, the number of kids or the number of tests taken was 721. However, the number of kids who were actually passing the test was in the 200s. So that's a considerable difference. So I'm really questioning when we're putting this kind of funding into that program, are we putting kids in there and just setting them up to fail, or should they really be there? So I just think that data is important. When I just looked across like the ethnic background of the students in the class, it seems like we've got a diverse background. However, I also noticed that where it's based on a scale of 0 to 3, it looks like we've got a lot of people between 2.5 and 2.75 on the graph, which looks great, except it's a 5-point scale. So there's nobody above like the 2.75 mark. So that's really, with this program, I think that data that we might want to look at closer to see if this is really a good use of the money based on those numbers. And I apologize because I just got that information today. It's for the board meeting tomorrow night. But that is kind of from skimming it, what I took from the data. So if anybody else would like to address that.
Well, one of the first steps.
One of those early steps in students becoming involved in AP courses is the first having students in the courses, becoming comfortable with it. And then also, and Dr. Boyce addressed this at the meeting last week as well, is really looking at the courses before that and really building that as well. There's also, and I don't know the rate, that the pass rate of AP courses nationally is not super high either. So when you're looking at the data, right.
You're not muted.
Yeah, I'll mute myself. 13 are actually above the national, and the other, I think 3 are at the national.
8 and 3, 8 and 3 what?
8 out of 13 of our courses are actually above the national average pass rate. And then of those 5 that are not, I believe 3 are almost at that average to making it. And then the other 2 are close. Correct. And then with that, I believe we were looking at data that said that a decade ago, 2010, 70 some, 70 some credits or tests were taken, now to 272. So it's been incrementally growing over the years. So for what I'm saying, for this amount of money, we're getting the bang for our buck.
So it's, looking at the pass rate, the national pass average.
And even the kids
And I
that,
guess I'm worried more about like at the district level. I get that we're recruiting kids into these AP classes. Oh, sorry. I'm looking at more the district level, recruiting students into these classes, just with the percentages of the number of tests taken versus the number of tests that are actually passed. That's well over 50%. So I'm not looking at the national average, but just looking district wide.
but it's kind of like the raising the ship by, more people are getting these better classes, more in depth, more knowledge.
Mhm.
Maybe they're not taking their tests, but they're becoming better overall students because of these classes.
And they're better prepared for college. Correct. There have been studies that say that even if they don't get a 3, they have a better chance at college level classes because of the rigor that is needed within an AP course.
Okay. And so I guess what I'm asking is just if you guys want to look further into this data, or if you're prepared to make a decision on it tonight. And like I said, I know we've already put this off once. This is new data that was just shared today. I've kind of summarized what the data is showing. So with that, I'll turn it over to the board to make a determination if they want to move forward tonight or not with that information, or if they'd like to wait and obtain the documents that I'm talking about.
Terrell, do you have anything more to add?
No, I mean, I just feel that what everybody has said is spot on. I mean, the data piece, I get that.
Josh, could you help us out?
I think what everybody has said is spot on. I mean, the data piece is one thing, but just to be in the class, just to feel like you belong in an AP class, for me is worth more than anything. I mean, because that hasn't always been the case. It just hasn't. I mean, when I was in school, I didn't even know I could take an AP class, right? And we've changed that here in Harlem with the work that we've done, where kids feel like if I want to take an AP course, I can take an AP course. That's and for me, yeah, I'll put that work up against anybody's work or anybody's data or anything like that. So let's see what I got.
So they're taking the AP course and passing it.
Some are
And-
passing it.
Some are passing.
what's the percentage that's passing it?
Well. What did you say?
There's a test in the process.
Yeah.
They can pass the course and they can
Right. Right. Because the test.
So
is
they're passing the
to-
course, they just may not be passing the test.
Right.
But
The
the
test,
Just take the course. You don't have to take the test.
we require it actually. Yeah, we require it. Most school districts don't require it. I mean, not many people take the actual test. The actual test is if you want to earn credit at the college level. So that's why the AP class is important for that reason, for those students who receive credit to put towards college. But the purpose of being in the AP classes, as Mr. Yarbrough has explained, here in Harlem and in most schools, is to get that rigorous curriculum to help better prepare for college, whether or not you get the college credit. And so that's why it's so important and why we're so proud of the fact that we have so many people taking the actual class. And that they're taking the test as well, because we require it. In most places, it's just a few people who actually take it. And even the fact that we have all of our students taking the test, we're still exceeding the national average in all those classes. So when you're looking at, are we succeeding at the actual AP test, I would say a resounding yes, because we're only in most we're competing against people nationally, districts and schools nationally that only have a very few people take the test, those who are most likely to pass it.
So my question would be is how are we measuring success in an AP class? Is it kids who are taking it and passing the class, or just kids who are taking it? Because I'm kind of feeling like we're making like success is defined right now as they're enrolled in the class and taking it, not necessarily how they're doing in the class.
No, not necessarily if they're passing the exam to get college credit. We certainly want our students to be passing the class, just like, any other class. We want them to get the credit because that's a high school graduation credit. But what we're saying is that whether or not they get the college credit, that's icing, an extra layer of icing on the cake. The icing on the cake is getting the credit at the high school level.
So would a student taking an AP class who received a D class, they would get high school credit, but not college credit, and that's measured as a success.
Depends on the
Well,
student.
yeah, it depends on the student. I mean, they got the high school credit. Would we want them to get an A or a B or a C? Of course. We continue working on that. But had they not been in the class, they would have had a low level of grades.
Maybe get a D, but other classes that aren't AP and excel in all of those because they're used to.
And that's why I just wanted to know how we're measuring success in these classes.
Yeah.
Student achievement overall, to take it, the progression of people taking it at the art passing, still increasing. The metrics are still going up. If 8 out of 13 people have our above national average, which is great, and we're still increasing for what we're paying.
Well, and I thought that their AP class, the students were identified through teacher recommendations, and then the counselor working with them to get in the class.
That's part of it.
That's part of it.
That's not-
It's helping us even identify more than before, right? Because with the student insight part that I mentioned earlier, the teachers are actually identifying, hey, this student may not have taken an AP class before, but they're showing, those signs. They're showing here's if we just reach out to them, here's the barriers that they mentioned, all those.
Here's the barriers that they mentioned, all those things that sometimes we may have missed that kid, and now we're not, and this helps our counselors, this helps our teachers, and us too as administrators.
So is this program teaching us what and how to look for future, that eventually we'll be doing it on our own without their assistance? Or is this something that we're going to need every year in order to figure out what kids need to be in this class?
Right. Eventually, we won't need, EOS. Eventually, we won't, because each year we've gotten to a different level, where now we're in that sustained, equity phase where it's pretty much, us, working at the school level and now using EOS for, the data and things that they have on their end, and gathering that data and working with our district office staff as well to get all that together. So eventually, yeah, but right now I still feel that we need them. Yeah.
That would be the next step, would be to move away from EOS, because we have the tools then to be able to do it, and the structure and the culture. Okay.
So they are working for us to identify them now and teaching us how we can identify them on our own going forward. So it's kind of a dual progression with them. And how long have we been using them?
This is our 4th year.
Anybody else got any questions or comments? Okay, Josh, back to you again. You're muted.
All right. So my next recommendation tonight is to approve a partnership with Common Lit Formative Insight Program for English Language Arts, grades 3 through 12, for a total cost of $3,600, paid for with Title III funds. Ana Luisa Dominguez submitted a memo or a recommendation regarding this recommendation and some of the benefits of Common Lit to our multilingual learners, and that memo is attached to the board meeting tonight. And she's actually here. So does anyone have any questions on Common Lit? All right. My final item tonight is a recommendation to approve an additional contract with Sunbelt Staffing or Vocal Vision for teletherapists for speech pathology services at a minimum of 37.5 hours per week for 12 weeks at a total cost of $40,500 for FY21, paid for out of IDEA Flow Through Part B. We have a staff member on leave through Christmas break, so this is filling in those services until they return. Are there any questions on the Vocal Vision recommendation? Those are my items for tonight.
Okay, thank you. So tonight we're bringing forward a total of 18 transfers, 1 leave of absence, a total of 10 employments, and as Dr. Herb mentioned tonight, a recommendation for a new position of a bilingual paraeducator at Parker Center. Any questions on any of those? And also informational purposes tonight, we have accepted 10 resignations since we last met. And that's all I have tonight.
Thank you. And with that, I'll turn it over to Ms. Dr. Morris for her report.
Okay, I have 2 items this evening. The first
First
one,
one, I'll turn it back over to Mr. Yarbrough. And Margaret Scholl. Yeah. I think as long as the microphone is on.
Oh, thanks.
All right. So thanks again for having us. I have with me here Mrs. Margaret Scholl. She's awesome. She's in her administrative internship program. She will be a fabulous administrator in our district very soon. I have no doubt of that. So she's going to go over the presentation for the activities that we have at the high school, and then we'll go from there.
Thank you for having me this evening. hosting activities at the school has been a passion of mine since joining the district. I have a vested interest in the Harlem district. I'm not only a teacher, but I'm alum and have 3 children in the district. COVID activities and how they were going to look has been something that Trill and I have discussed since the summer. We've met on several different occasions to see what we can do and what it will look like with COVID restrictions. A subcommittee was also formed through the summer that included administrators, coaches, and club advisors on what we can do and what our restrictions are. At Harlem, currently, we have 30 clubs and organizations outside of sports and students so that students can join. They're meeting remotely, so both the in-person and remote students have those opportunities, and they're also meeting on after school on days that there are late buses. This year, we started the different clubs and organizations. The advisors are meeting once a month to kind of discuss and collaborate different events that we can create for our students this year, since it's not a traditional year of events that we can hold. Different ideas that some of our club advisors have come up with that we don't have planned yet, but just to kind of give you an idea, are a recipe night, a virtual Oktoberfest, virtual concerts, a stakeholder window decorating, so our kids can go within the community and paint different businesses' windows to show this Harlem support and pride when people are driving along 173, 251 area. Different theme days, like we should have done a college day for SATs tomorrow, just something, to get kids excited and something different. And the staff really needs a boost as well. And Charles' most idea that he's excited about is all school bingo. So something to keep social distance, yet try to keep people excited in the school. To get ideas from other stakeholders, we sent out a parent survey and requested their feedback on what events they would like to see, taking into account the COVID restrictions. We had 164 parents complete the survey. The majority of individuals offered events that we cannot hold, unfortunately, because of COVID restrictions, or they stated that we should not be doing events at all. Communication is vital during this time with our families. And a question that we asked our families is, how likely are you to participate in a parent administrator town hall virtual meeting? 26% of parents stated that they would be likely to join that. Another question, the last question we asked them was, how likely are you to join a parent group to support the activities that are being held at the high school? Again, 26% of parents stated that they were very likely to join that. Feedback from our students is also important at this time. We had our first student council meeting recently, and they understand that this is not a traditional year, and we need to think outside the box to plan activities. They have shared some creative ideas they look forward to bringing to life. A student survey is also going to be sent to the rest of our students at Harlem. Student Council is currently putting together a newsletter to send out to all students, explaining to them all those 30 clubs, what they can join outside of athletics, and that survey will be put in that newsletter. Current activities that we do have planned and that are going and are on the calendar is a student movie. Our theater really thought outside the box when they found out that they couldn't perform a fall play. So they're currently filming Little Women, and they hope to have that out for everybody in 2001. We discussed that maybe showing at the different elementary schools within the school day so that we can really get that all around. Since the schools can't come to the auditorium like they used to be able to see it, they'll still have that opportunity to get to see what our students have put together. Right now at the high school, we have Huskies Vote. So we are giving students the opportunity who will be 18 by November 3rd to register to vote. And then we're going to do this event again in the spring for kids who then will be of age to register to vote, to give them the opportunity. We have 2 Spirit Weeks planned currently. Our first one will be the last week of October, and that will be a lot like homecoming, where we have different dress up days, different activities for the kids to do at the school and virtually. So again, we have to think outside the box for that for our remote learners so they can be involved. We are going to, instead of, we used to do spirit points for the kids, we're going to have them do like a Google Sheet so our kids who are remote can say, hey, I participated in this, and we'll do a random drawing to be able to give kids different prizes and feel like they're part of the in-school experience. And we'll do the same event in March. The dress up days, like I said, we just met for the first time recently for student council, and I've always allowed the kids to choose the activities and the dress up days. So they just finished putting a form together for that and are voting on it this week. So we'll let the rest of the school know what they chose for that probably by the end of this week. World Kindness Day is November 13th. So I thought of all years, that's a perfect, of all years, this is a perfect year to make sure that we are representing our kindness and doing different activities for that. The other one that I'm extremely excited about is our mural competition. We have a lot of blank walls at the high school. So this competition will have students submit artwork to paint on the walls in various areas around the school. So like in the math department, if it's a math theme, in the theater department, theater theme. So just to really make our walls and our school feel more inviting for all of our students involved. And then Science Olympiad has their Harlem virtual invitation and the first weekend in December. Although we are unable to host traditional school events this year, I am confident that our club advisors and students will come up with activities to make the 2000 and 2001 school year memorable. And Terrell will go over what the athletic department has done and they're looking to do in the future.
All right. Well, thank you. First, is there any questions on what Margaret went over? Great job. And so on the athletic side, with Rebecca Hoffman, our athletic director, she's also doing a wonderful job within the restrictions, with COVID. So senior nights, she's been having for all of the fall sports. She's had senior nights, and those senior nights have already passed, but she had one for boys golf on September 23rd, where the seniors were presented their plaques. She also had one for girls swimming and diving, where seniors got banners and their plaques were presented. Also, girls tennis received their plaques as well. Boys cross country on September 26th at Rock Cut. Girls cross country as well on September 26th. And then girls golf is to be determined, but she will have a senior night for them also. Now, another thing that she's planning on doing on the athletic side is what she calls athletic spirit. So on the 16th and 17th, we have our IHSA sectional at Harlem, the singles, where students can take a selfie supporting Harlem and then post that to the Twitter using hashtag Harlem has spirit. Students will be entered into a drawing for a gift card or possible gift cards to My Pizza, Starbucks, Dunkin' Donuts, Panera, and Beefaroo. Now we're currently waiting on the winter season things to be determined. That ruling is going to come out on October 19th at the Board of Directors meeting. So we are planning things. We're trying to, within the restrictions that we're given, provide our students with just some fun, right? I mean, in this time. And we're also listening to our students and our parents as well, is what they think we can do to just kind of hype up the school a little bit. So, any questions?
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, my second item this evening then is the discussion and the recommendation to approve the district-wide full remote learning plan between the dates of November 30th through January 15th. And so that is what we will talk about now. And I wanted to go through a few things and then open it up for discussion. So the purpose of bringing this recommendation here this evening is to have open dialogue about whether or not we should preemptively go to full remote learning over the winter holidays. Further, our purpose is so that if we do go to full remote learning, parents and staff have the advance notice to prepare and to make any necessary adjustments. Questions and conversations have been going on as to what we need to do at the holidays. It's out there, it's spinning around, people are talking about it. We know that college students are coming home for the holidays. We know that there are gatherings will be occurring inside and outside of our community. And this poses a higher risk of exposure in the community, which ultimately increases the risk of higher exposure between being brought into the schools for COVID. My goal here is to support the conversation with the board and to answer questions and provide data in order to make that decision. We know based on the feedback so far that there are those who are in favor of this proposal and those who are not in favor for various reasons. What we decide will be right and wrong depending on who we talk to. So we will discuss and make this decision together and move forward. I would like to present information regarding this recommendation, and then we can open it up for discussion and questions from there. So we know that the county positivity rate is approximately 10%, and right around there. We also know that the rate in school districts in our region, including Harlem, is right around 1% or less, depending on the school district. One thing that we must also take into consideration when we're talking through this process in our schools is the quarantine rate of staff, which also impacts our ability to fill positions with substitutes when they need to quarantine as well. Scott will share with you the data for our last 3 weeks regarding our positive cases and then our quarantine numbers, as well as our substitute fill rates. And so he'll talk through that now to provide that context.
Thank you, Dr. Morris. So just to bring you guys up to speed, Dr. Morris, I went back 4 weeks so we can kind of have a little bit more of a comprehensive information here. So as far as and unfilled absences is just one piece of the puzzle. So I'm just bringing that information forward so that you can have it all. Going back 4 weeks ago, our unfilled rate was 23%, which means we only filled about 77% of all jobs. 3 weeks ago, that rate was down to 73%. Again, 2 weeks ago, it was also 73%. And this past week, our unfilled absence rate was 70%. So we only filled about 70% of our jobs last week. And I'm sure other administrators and teachers in the audience today could speak to the difficulties that we're having as far as filling teaching positions, support staff positions, and that's all positions. That's just not just teaching, it's all positions in the district. So as you can see, the fill rate is decreasing. We're having a harder and harder time staffing the positions. Going back 4 weeks ago, we had a total of 13 positive cases, and that counts students and staff in the district. 3 weeks ago, it was 11 positive cases. 2 weeks ago, it was 12. And last week, it was 19 total positive cases. And like Dr. Morris had mentioned, the positivity rate, while maybe being 1% or even possibly lower than that, the quarantine rate is much higher. So 4 weeks ago, for staff, we had 84 staff members in quarantine. 3 weeks ago, it jumped to 130 staff members. 2 weeks ago, it went down significantly to 59 staff members. And this past week, we had 78 staff members in quarantine. And what I mean by that, that doesn't mean they were in quarantine all week. It means that if they were in quarantine at all that week, they were counted in that number. Going for student numbers, 4 weeks ago, we had 12 students. 3 weeks ago, we had 63 students. 2 weeks ago, we had 35 students. And last week, we had 47 students in quarantine. Now, when I talk about student numbers and staff numbers, I am not including any buildings any classrooms that were closed. I'm not counting any of those students or those staff members in those rooms. So for example, we had Parker Center had 16 classrooms that were closed. I didn't count any of those students or any of those staff members in those numbers. They're back, yes, they are back. And then eventually Parker, as you know, went fully remote for a couple of weeks. So none of those numbers are in there. We also had a classroom at Olson Park. We had a total of 3 classrooms at Maple, classroom at Rockpot. So when I talk about all those numbers, the students and the staff are not in those numbers. Obviously, those numbers would be drastically increased if I counted all of those. So just wanted to give you a perspective when we're looking at, and again I say this is just one piece to the puzzle. But when we're looking at making the decision, we are having a very difficult time filling all the staff positions every single week, every single day. We have all kinds of teachers filling in for other teachers. We have principals filling in as teachers. We have administrators in this building going to other buildings to help with lunches and things like that. So we're really piecing it together already. And so I just thought you guys should have that information before you made a decision. Do you have any questions about that?
What's your number that you say that we probably couldn't handle? I mean, we're at 70% on the unfilled absent, you said?
Yeah.
Where's the point of no return for where I mean, you just can't operate?
Well, Mr. Sterling, I guess that depends on who you ask, because each day we get a phone call or a text or an email from an administrator going, I'm not sure what I'm going to do today. I have 9 unfilled teaching absences. Do we have any help? You guys actually approved 13 extra staff members this year. So we have 13 full-time substitutes in the district. And those substitutes' responsibility, their first responsibility is to fill in for anybody who's gone with COVID issues. Okay, so if you're out on quarantine, that's their number one thing. The number two thing for them is to fill any unfilled absences in their current building. So if they don't have a COVID spot to fill, but they come to work and there's a teacher who was out for a different reason, but didn't get a sub, that person goes there. Then their third responsibility is every morning, emails get shot around to all the buildings going, I need so-and-so, I need 2 or 3 different subs. And if a building has a permanent sub that they're not using, they send that permanent sub to the other building to help fill those spots. So luckily we have those. We have 13 extra of those, and that has definitely helped. But the point of no return, I would just be, truthfully, I don't want to even say, because I would just be guessing. We are piecing it together. I don't want to really make a guess if you don't mind, because I just don't know. Our fill rate has never been this low. Other districts are facing the same thing. I reached out to the other major districts in the area who, a lot of them use Kelly staffing services to staff their substitutes, and they're having the same issue. And they're kind of piecing it together as well. So I don't know. I hate to say I don't know to your question, but
Something that none of us know. I'm just operating. I mean, especially at such a low number of, I mean, with 70%. So I mean, at 60, I mean, are we strapped? You know, administrators, everybody's in classrooms.
yeah, I think what would happen, Mike, is that we will eventually get, and this is all speculation because I can't know what's going to happen with COVID, right? None of us can really know what's going to happen, but I think we're going to reach the point where we physically won't have enough people to come in the buildings to work, and we'll have to close the classroom because there's no one who could work there that day. You know what I'm saying? And so it might be a classroom here or a classroom there. I think that would likely be the next step. We're not to that point yet. Teachers are really stepping up. Principals are really stepping up. Everybody's pitching in and helping as much as they can. So I don't want to downplay that.
No,
people are amazing.
You guys are strapped. I'm just
yeah.
wondering.
And on a normal year, our fill rate is usually in the high 80s to the low 90s every day. So it's never in the 70s. And if it dips lower than that, we're in real trouble, in my opinion.
Okay.
So my question is, I know that we have these numbers, the last 4 weeks, but can you give me a rough estimate of how many staff we have in total and how many students we have in total in the district?
Staff, roughly, we have around 1,000. I could probably pull up a more accurate number for you, but it's right really close to 1,000. Students, and you want student in-person numbers?
In-person numbers, right?
Yes.
Because that's what it's going to affect.
So that,
Jeff, for the help.
I think Jason has an accurate number on that. Like, I think
In person, total is like 1120-ish. For remote learners.
No, how many students are in the classrooms right now?
63 tech total students. 63 tech total. How many in person?
I think the number I heard was around 5,100.
Yeah.
It's around 30. It's like roughly 30% of that. Because it varies, 25 to 35% depending on the grade level. So I don't know the exact number. That was just 30% of the 62 tech.
Are in-school learners?
So 70%.
Wait, 30% are remote? I'm sorry. Okay. Sorry, I just. Okay, thank you, Josh. I know you're the numbers man. So I appreciate that information. And just kind of as a side note, I will volunteer time if the buildings get busy. You give me a call, I'd be happy to help in any way I can. I understand that we had people answering phone calls the other day, and I'm like, hey, I can do it. Whatever you need, I can read stories, I can, whatever.
Thank you.
Any other questions regarding that information?
I have a question. You gave us for the last 4 weeks, and we've been in school a total of 5 weeks,
Sounds right. It's all a blur to me.
right? Okay.
Has it been that?
So
Only
it's
5
only been
weeks?
5 weeks. So I mean, again, it's the roller coaster effect, like we talked about before school started. That, I mean, we're just dealing with the roller coaster on what's going on. And right now, our positivity rate is so high, but when you're talking unfilled positions, are you talking staff in the building, or are you talking staff all the way around, including janitors, school bus drivers? Or are you
Yeah.
talking with regarding just people working with the students directly?
It's a good question. It's all a staff, but typically unfilled positions like in bus drivers and bus assistants, those guys just do their own thing and fill it. So those numbers aren't really in there. It's all staff positions, but you also have to realize that some staff positions don't require a sub. So, I mean, I could give you a number as far as like, let me just give you an example. So last week we had a total of 745 absences that were recorded into our absence system. 424 of those needed a substitute. And out of those 424, we filled 297 of the 424. So we had 123, 27-ish absences that didn't get filled that week. Does that make sense?
Are we able to combine, so let's say that teacher A and teacher B each have 12 in-person kids and 5 kids are missing from this class, 12 are missing from that class, and 1 teacher's out. Are we combining those classes to fill some of this backfill?
No, we can't cross the
can't.
cohorts like that.
Okay, just a thought.
I have a question. Has anybody from the administration building been in the classrooms to teach, not just helping with lunches, et cetera?
In
but
this building?
In this building, gone over to help fill missing teacher positions?
No, typically what happens, not that I'm aware of, I mean, I'm not aware that anybody in this building has taught, but typically what would happen is we would go over there and replace the administrator so that the administrator could go do some of those things, if that makes sense.
Okay, has that
Yes, absolutely. Many of us are still getting called to buildings. I was in a building last week, actually.
And I can confirm that.
What's our daily attendance rate absence for the in-person students? Anybody know?
I feel like we kind of jumped in here. Julie, were you done with your presentation?
No, but I was just asking a question.
I'm like, we're halfway through this. Maybe we need more information that might help answer some of these questions.
Any more questions regarding Scott's information? I don't.
Thank you. Since school started, we've had 315 students who moved to remote learning. And then we've had 50 total students move from remote learning to in-person. And those are based on financial hardships, because we had said that you can't, overall you can't move back to in-person, but there are those circumstances. And those are based on typically jobs, when parents get a job and now they need to go to work. And so that's a financial issue, or financial hardships, or then if they need a specialized program that we have within the district. So that's what those have been mainly about. So the challenges that we have shared and that we know about for for going to remote include really, the main one is that comes forward is childcare for dual working parents. Another one is that the social emotional needs, you heard that throughout the comments, and that certainly parents chose in many cases to put their children in school so that they, in person, so that they would have that social emotional addressed more readily in person, having those relationships and so forth. And then the academic, the remote learning is difficult to navigate. And it's something that certainly is a challenge for anybody who goes to remote. Challenges for staying with the in-person learning is that we run the risk, as we talked about, of higher COVID exposure within the schools due to higher exposure within the community, which then may lead to shutting down classrooms abruptly as opposed to preemptively. So we can certainly shut them down, stay in person, but if there's issues that continue, then it would be, okay, we got to shut it down now, as opposed to preparing for it. And that would not allow the time to plan for the change to remote for that defined period of time that we talked about. Another challenge of staying with in-person is that I stated earlier and that we just talked about is that positive rate may not be high. However, the quarantine process is already putting a strain on proper staffing levels. And if we have a greater need to quarantine due to high exposure, that will become an even greater challenge. Because of the need to quarantine and possibly it being a greater issue during the holidays, we are needing to then patchwork our learning environment, which the goal of going full remote would be to keep those teachers and students together to prepare for that, so that they've already got those established relationships, they've already got their learning systems, they're preparing for that, and that they would go to remote together for that time. Addressing, that would address some of the social emotional needs that we're concerned about rather than and the academic needs, because they will stay with their cohort. And so those are the main points that I wanted to bring forward from my perspective. And so from here, other questions and discussion items that we would like to talk about or more information that you may want or need.
Julie, we discussed this earlier, so I just wanted to bring it because I haven't had the option to talk to the board about it yet. But I feel like we've got a lot of feedback from the community. And I think that everybody's advocating for their own rights and their own purposes. And I feel like the board did their work when we opened the school this fall. And we took the surveys and we had parents commit to either online or e-learning or in the classroom. Some of those worked out, some didn't. So we shifted some people around. But I'm wondering why we sit here choosing between e-learning and the classroom. I realize that we're trying to be proactive and prepare parents, but I guess I'm also wondering if preparing the parents might be, okay, you're still going to have the option. We can survey our parents going into the holiday season and give them the choice at the holidays. Would you prefer e-learning or in class? Plan to go in with both options still available. Let them tell us, are you traveling at the holidays? Are you having family from out of town coming in? If you are, do the honorable thing and keep your kids home for e-learning. However, if you're not and you're socially distancing and you're doing everything right, and then you have the option to bring them in class with the huge caution that be prepared, we could be closed down any day. So you need that backup plan for your kids because that's something we can't control. But could we basically just treat October, the end of October, beginning of November, same way we started the year? Let's send out these surveys. Let's have them recommit to inline, or, I think that's a way that we can address all children in the district rather than just half the children or 70% of the children. So that is my recommendation tonight. I respect, the intent behind this, just so the community is very crystal clear, was to talk about this early so that we weren't at the end of the timeline and saying, oh, by the way, we're closing for the holidays because of a spike in cases. So we're having these difficult conversations, knowing that moving forward, this could always be the potential. We could have this discussion and decide we're closing the buildings November 14th, and in reality, we could be closing them next week. So parents need to be prepared for anything. This is a pandemic. We don't control it. We don't know where the numbers are. It's not our job to determine if it's real or if it's not, or, you know, hey, we're going to take a crystal ball and figure out what's going to happen next week. We can't do that. This is a way that we can plan, let the parents be a part of it for what's best for their families, and have that big caution sign everywhere we go. If we are shut, you know, if the numbers spike, the health department is the one who determines if we stay open. And that's what the plan that we'll follow. And then they have that notice that they need to prearrange. So that's my recommendation. So
So based on that,
Mhm.
discussion,
Based on that, I talked to Dr. Herb to talk about, so what if we had more people want to go remote? What would that look like for staffing? What would that look like? And so she's going to talk through that a little bit.
Okay.
To give her perspective.
I just interject just 1 second. We are talking about.
Mike, you're muted.
Oh, yeah, sorry. So we're talking about going full remote, or what happens January 14th to all the families that want to come back who are at a remote right now? That you could, we're going to get that, 'cause we were going to talk about them going, you know, what it's going to look like, more people going remote. But all the families that want to come back that have been on remote and say this isn't for me, because we've talked to quite a few people out there that are adamant their kids are coming back January 14th or January 4th or whatever our prospective date is. What does that look like, especially with where our staff is looking like when we come back? So I mean, I want to hear both of these plans. If we're talking about this right now for Thanksgiving, I want to know what's going to be happening in January for the families that are going to be coming back. I mean, not today, obviously, but
Well,
while we go forward.
Yeah,
Can I
Dr.
just when I say that we're going to send this survey out, that's not just for students. I think that we have some staff also that would like to be remote or be in the classroom. So that's kind of encompassing of everybody that would be impacted. So we can look at the numbers and say, oh, we've only got 5 teachers and we've got 500 kids, and be realistic about what it's going to look like if we have to make adaptations before we do this. So with that, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you.
Everybody in the business of educating our children. And I know that a lot of the concern is what happens when they go out for holidays and grandma and things of this nature. That's very important. And obviously we want our families to be safe. However, our job is to educate the kids. Thank you.
Thank you. So Dr. Morris did ask me, like, for starters, how many spots do we have open right now? So if we had families that decided that they wanted to go to remote right now. At this time, we have both kindergarten and 4th grade positions posted. Had an interview actually today for kindergarten. I have no applicants for 4th grade. So as far as finding additional staff right now, because across this whole area, everybody's trying to find remote teachers. That's a rather difficult thing to do. I think we're all looking forward to some December grads coming to hopefully fill some positions. But at kindergarten and 4th grade right now, we have no openings. At 1st grade, we have 17 spots. In 2nd grade, we have 9. In 3rd grade, we have 19. In 5th, we have 10. And in 6th, we have 5. So if we would open up, kind of like you had suggested, so families could decide from Thanksgiving till the end of the semester, would they switch to remote? The first thing we would need to do is work with the union to kind of determine who would be those teachers too that would be going remote versus who would be staying in person, because these teachers already made connections with their students, and students would then have a new teacher that they would end up having. We would be crossing cohorts, which we do have to be careful of, because one of the things we've tried to do is keep things separate the whole time. But those would be the steps that we would have to take to start filling the seats, because we kept that commitment of 19 in person, but we are going to the CBA, depending on what that grade level is for the remote. Kind of to go along with what Mike was saying about coming back, we know that that's also happening. So what we have planned is that in the month of November is when families have to determine if they're coming back at semester. And the reason for that is because there is going to be a whole lot of shuffling that takes place because we may have too many remote teachers then we're going to need to create more in person. So there are families that will probably need to be on class size transfers because of the fact that we have those limits of 19. And so in order to keep the smaller class sizes, we may have to have families that maybe they were supposed to go to Olson Park, they may have to go someplace else just because of the space that is available. At that time, we also are going to have to reevaluate. Right now, we do have each of our grade levels in particular buildings, but we might need to have that space for in-person classrooms. So we may have to do some shuffling there as well. See, there's a lot of benefits with having remote teachers in a similar location for collaboration and PLC opportunities. However, if it's between that and having our students have their space, we will have to make sure that students have their space. So the plan, we're working on fine tuning what that plan would look like, Mike, as far as families who have the choice to go either direction at semester. But we feel that the month of November is going to be needed because we're going to need December since it has the holiday, it's not a full, and you start January where it's not a full month. We'll need that time in order to work through how does that shuffle occur. And then we're also going to need to work with the union as well as how does that look like, who are those people. Want to make sure that we're doing things in a fair manner as well as people get moved from one to the other. So as far as what we would be doing if with your model, Patty, again, we'd have to work on how that would look. Yes, there are some that would want to choose remote. I would agree with that. And then there's others when we did go remote before that people were not interested in going that direction. And so now that is a direction they're going and we're working through that.
So how long, let's say we like this model, how long, I noted here that they wanted to plan to go to remote, so that kind of transition for the holidays of who's going where, the moving the kids around, in or out. How long do you need to get that all organized and ready to go? Let's say we have 50 kids decide that they're out they want to go remote. How long of a lead does administration need to make that, okay, we're ready to go? So like, when would we have to have a survey back with the decision from a parent?
Honestly, we'd have to do a quick turnaround because there's a whole lot of shuffling. And from what we did with our last survey, I will tell you, after people made their decision, there were a lot of people who changed their mind. So that it kept shuffling all the way through. Those numbers were going up and down and trying to keep track of how many teachers that we needed. It was just a constant moving target. So the reality is we would have to have a fairly quick turnaround time because there's a lot of conversations that need to take place to make sure that people have the opportunity to choose, and if not, decisions have to be made.
And I just think it's important for everybody to realize these are unprecedented times. We don't have a manual on this. We haven't had, a problem with a pandemic since I think smallpox, actually we had the swine flu. But I think that just continuing to have those conversations and figuring out what the needs of our district are and really just running with that. I think the administration team has been, we've had some hiccups and some bumps, but I think that right now we've got some buildings that are just knocking it out of the park. We've got teachers giving it, they're all in classrooms, on e-learning. And I think that at the end of the day, that Husky pride just has to keep carrying us. So thank you, Mickey.
Other questions or? Go ahead.
Is it possible to get that? Is it possible to get that questionnaire out by October 20th? Submit this. So is that possible to have that?
For the semester, like who's coming back at semester or?
Correct, at least that. So, I mean, we'd give them like a 2-week time frame. So that would give us to the November 10th board meeting to understand especially what we're talking about with this stuff of the future and
Well, there's two different things that we have to do. The
Correct.
one for if we.
There are two different things we have to do. If we decide to go the route of staying with in person and giving people the option to go remote if they want to do that at the elementary level, then we would need that information quite quickly, so that we can reshuffle.
Okay.
And then for second semester, that can come in November. And then whoever wants to make that change, that's been the plan all along. So we just need to know who that is, and then we need to make the changes. So that isn't something that we would have to get board approved, unless, of course, we change that. But what we would need to do is decide, okay, we're gonna go with this. You can stay for the holidays, which is what we're talking about here. If we went with that plan, you can decide to stay with in person, or you could decide to do remote. And then we would have to have that information. I think that's what you were talking about, a quick turnaround time.
Really, we have to have a really short turnaround time.
Yeah.
If we were going to open that up, because there are so many things that are open. We really, there are activities for shopping and for staff to figuring out what that would be looking like.
If people
I'd be
choose,
surprised to see a major shift in change. It could happen, it could happen, we don't know what to expect, but I think that people are just getting used to it, they've got their routines down, but maybe people have trips planned and they're like, hey, we need to pull our kids home, so. Guess we have to see what that looks like.
So if I understood you correctly, these numbers that you gave us for spots that are open, those are for remote learners.
Those are the number of remote seats open right now. To the group. Those are the number of remote seats that are open right now. So as families come in and register, or if for some reason, we had said from the very beginning, if a family chose in person and at any time they felt uncomfortable and wanted to switch to remote, they could switch to remote. So those are the number of open seats that we currently have at each of those grade levels.
Does anybody have an approximation of how many students are absent per week?
I have fun. Okay. I don't know. You mean
how many in-person people?
Yes. How many in-person students are missing per week?
The part that's kind of tricky with that is that if a student would need to go into quarantine for some reason, they are marked as absent and we move them to remote learning then. So because they still are getting their education, it's just done remotely. So as far as knowing like the exact how many are absent and not doing anything, I couldn't tell you that number. I could find out that number.
May I ask you what that would?
But they still, the e-learning, you would still be counted in the teacher to student ratio, correct? So it's nothing would really change. So we wouldn't have any availability per se.
Right. May I ask what you're trying to get at?
Well,
That,
No, if we have 2 classrooms that are shut down and I'm just going to say for first grade, for instance, you've only got 17 spots for e-learners. So if 2 classes are quarantined, and how many kids are currently in each class?
But if an in-person classroom goes on quarantine, the in-person teacher still works remotely currently.
As long as that in-person teacher is not ill and able to do that.
Correct.
Because we may be having illnesses, not COVID related, flus coming up that are taking teachers out also. And so you may not have enough remote teachers if you have to close classes right away. Or do you have extra? Have you not had that problem yet?
No, I think we've had that problem the whole year, is that we haven't had enough teachers. That's very,
Remote. No, I'm not talking in person. I'm talking remote.
yeah, it could easily become a problem if we had everybody go home and we had teachers that were out. We're still struggling with that in the buildings.
How is our remote? Is that the case with our remote learners? Frequently, our remote teachers, if they go, if our kids go out on quarantine or on remote learning, frequently those teachers are able to teach. It's once in a while when a teacher's actually sick and they can't teach. Right?
Correct.
And I didn't experience that.
Correct, and like with the remote teachers, so say the third grade teacher. The third grade teacher goes home and their Zoom call was at 9:30. They send out an email and one of the other third grade teachers in that same classroom, because they're all in the same building, will then change it. Your new same Zoom call for this class will be at 10:30. She does her class at 9:30 and then does the other teacher's class at 10:30. So they've been combining and mixing this whole time.
But you can do that for the remote much easier than you can the in-person, combining and mixing.
Yes, because you're not combining cohorts. And so the in-person, you don't want to bring two different cohorts together into the same room. But being remote and they're all at home, yes, somebody could work with two different classes if needed. We try not to do that as much as possible because they're already seeing kids. So there's so many hours of live instruction already. So that's our line.
So Julie, you're saying that we really don't have time to get a survey done before the next board meeting to
No, I'm
find
not
out where we're
saying-
sitting?
No, I'm not
Okay.
saying that at all. We would need to get a survey done in a quick turnaround time. Yeah.
They could do that without it. I think right now the decision is what plan we want to move forward, so then they can have the directive and just run with it and start doing those surveys.
Right, but I'm saying if we pull this now and say, no, we're not going to vote on it, let's get the survey and see what everything is saying and then make the decision at that time. I mean, if we're going to make the decision tonight, then we don't need a survey
No,
because the decision is made.
no,
I
we
think
would
we're
need a
talking
survey.
about
Yeah, we're talking about two different
Two
things.
different surveys.
I
I think the survey that we're talking about over here is that we made the decision that we're still gonna do both. And so now if you are an in-person learner and you want to go remote for the holiday season through the end of the semester, which would be the end of January, then we need to know that so we can start changing the structure of the classes. So if we make the decision to do that tonight, then that would be our next step. And I think what you're saying is that we want to have a survey from parents to find out if they want to go remote or if they want to do both.
Okay,
Or-
now,
Yeah.
yes, okay, now I'm understanding a little better.
Okay.
But that survey would be teachers and students,
To see if they want to go remote or not,
right?
what you're talking about.
No, what you guys are talking about.
Well, it wouldn't,
Well,
I don't
teachers
know.
are contractual, so that would be something the union would have to probably facilitate. But I know that we've got emails from teachers indicating that they want to be remote and they have plans.
And we have emails from teachers saying that they want to stay in class, exactly.
So that's why I think that's like a union.
But that would be, well, no, our teachers wouldn't be deciding whether or not they would go remote.
Our teachers would have the ability to decide if they want to go remote if we decide that some people are staying in person.
We
We
would
would
have
have
to
to determine how many people we need they're going to go full remote at the elementary level, because the secondary level, they would stay with whatever they're doing because their classes are set. So they would still be having their in-person and their remote kids. So we would need to know how many people want to go remote, and then we would have to adjust staffing based on that. So it's not I want
That makes
to,
sense.
yeah.
It'd be similar to what we had to do at the beginning of the school
Right,
year.
right.
That numbers dropped where there was only 19, I'll use Maple as an example, there was only 19 in a grade level at Maple. That's when we collapsed one of the sections and we had to go through a process to determine who was going to be a remote teacher.
So really, what we're sitting here saying is we're back same place we were in August, that we've
Right.
got all this information coming in and we're just
We have to decide.
have to making decisions on the unknowns.
And this is for this defined period of time.
Right. All the while knowing, just like we did in August, that it could shut down at any time.
Yeah. I would say the likelihood of that after talking with Dr. Martell is that the governor is likely not going to shut us down. It's going to be a local decision.
Right. I'm not talking for totally being shut down. I'm talking especially when we all of a sudden, boom, have to quarantine a classroom or
Yeah, right.
quarantine the whole school
Right.
for 2 weeks. Or, you do the 16 out of the 18 or 15, whatever it was, for 2 weeks. And then just as they're getting ready to come back, we had to do the whole school. So then that first group of kids was off for 4 weeks.
Correct.
And then with the school having to close, it was another 2 weeks. And that parents need to be prepared for that because that could happen November or it could happen in February or October.
That's the biggest difference here is that do we want to do it preemptively or are we just going to take it as it comes? And quarantine classrooms, because we know we're going to need to quarantine classrooms. So do we want to make those decisions individually as we go, or do we want to do it district-wide and prepare for it? That's really
I think that both ways of preparing for it. Either way, whether it's, they select e-learning or in person, with the note that if we have to quarantine your class, you need to have a plan in place. Or if we say, yes, we're going to close for this amount of time, get your plans in place. I mean, that to me, what I feel right now is like the decision that the board needs to make is between the two plans, so administration can step in and get working on the plan, correct?
And I mean, I guess my thought process and my concern is we sit here and we don't know.
Right.
We sat there in August and we didn't know, but we did reach out to survey the parents to do, because I know several of us were very concerned about starting the school year off. Several of us board members that were sitting here were very concerned with starting the school year off. However, I think we went with the parent survey and the parent information and had the in-person. And yes, staffing is definitely an issue. And the problem is you can't plan for staffing unless you're shut it down or unless you're full remote learning. However, I just think we're not teaching those students that need the in-person classrooms on remote. That when they're struggling at home with remote, when they don't have a parent there to help them, or at grandma and grandpa's who don't understand computers at all, or whatever the scenario may be, I just think we're doing a disservice by not educating them for those 5 weeks.
And there's so many scenarios. I think the only way we do the best interest for the entire district is to let the parents choose what's the best fit for their family.
Knowing though that if they choose they want to go to remote, that there's only a certain amount of spots open and they may not get it.
I think that
they still need to be in person.
I think that we have to make it work, whatever their request is. We have to educate these kids. That's, our goal. And if we have to, make room or make a different teacher, someone who was in person go remote, then that's what we have to do to meet the needs of our families.
Well, I think it's important to remember as well, you know, the parents have had the choice the entire time. And those who want their children to do the e-learning or don't feel their student is safe in the classroom have either they signed them up from the beginning as remote learning or they pulled them and from in-person to remote learning. And it's never, at this point, parents have always had that option that if they were in person, they could always be pulled. So I'm not grasping why we need another survey when the parents have already spoken and they can remove their student. And the survey isn't about allowing kids that have been remote the entire time to come back to the classroom before the next term, but how many are going remote when that was always the option. It was never okay, we've got 12 spots available. If we have 30 kids that want to go remote for the same grade, we always said that we want to accommodate them. So,
Jill, I think to answer your question, there was a question kind of in there. I think that what we're proposing is that we continue to do what we've done, but the difference now is that we're looking at from Thanksgiving till mid to end of January as kind of like a new term. So you can dedicate again, yes, I want to stay remote learning, or no, I want to come back to the classroom. So if someone knows they're going on a 2-week trip over the holidays and they're in class right now, this gives them the option to go to e-learning. If they know they're going to see grandma and they have to quarantine before they see grandma, so the kids shouldn't be in school. It gives them that choice that, okay, I can take my kids out of the classroom, keep them home for the 5 weeks. They can still get their education at home, and we can still do as a family what we want to do. In turn, it also gives those parents and the children who need to be. Let me. The parents who can't, to meet the social emotional educational needs of the kids who are still in class, they still get to stay there. So we're not changing that. We're not changing that. We're just giving people who need to self-quarantine the opportunity to say, I need to be out for 6 weeks.
well, they would be coming back right before that second term when that option to come back would be anyway, correct?
The date would probably, we would probably align the dates, I would think, to when they come back at the end of the semester as well as if they quarantine.
Yeah. if they
That's
choose
when,
to
that's why we would send the survey out, is, okay, you've been an in-person learner, do you, that's what the survey is for. You need to go to e-learning through the holidays, caution, if you can e-learn or if you remain in the class.
If you go to e-learning, you would have to stay for the rest of the semester rather than come back on the 14th or whatever day we
So
have.
they would be out like another 2 weeks.
Yeah,
with-
for the rest of the,
29th, I believe, would be the
Yeah.
next semester.
because we would be,
29th.
yeah, for the end of the semester. Because we would be reshuffling and we can't reshuffle again once they,
Right, okay.
does that make sense?
So if we're going to travel,
Or if they just decide they want to do remote because of their fear that it's going to get worse or whatever. Or if they decided, yeah, they're going to be traveling, so they're going to go remote.
so they essentially really could travel and not tell us and just come back into the classroom.
Yeah.
They're doing it
Right.
now. That's a risk that, it's definitely an honor system.
Yeah.
We have to just have faith in our parents, they're gonna do the right thing for their child, but also children in the district.
And then our responsibility for staff would be that we need to be here. Unless we get sick or whatever. What other questions? So where do we go from here? Do we want to adjust it? Do we want to?
I like to recommend that we continue with the model that we have in place right now and just leave the family.
And adjust it based on what we talked about here.
You're on mute.
If the district's not going to be going full remote, if we're obviously not talking that, then to give you the best knowledge to be prepared to move teachers to cover whatever you need, then I think that would be better than having it all at once with people asking for remote, and then you guys having to try to fill, especially when we're at close to 30% absent, unfilled absentee rate. We're gonna be strapped to be able to cover classes for in person.
I just want to restate my statement because I was on mute. I recommend that we go with the same plan that we've had and just renew with the families whether they need to be e-learning or not, and give the parents the choice like the same as we did when we started the school year. I apologize for not during the holiday season, and just be very specific with the families about what those dates are, and the caution that if we do see a spike, have a plan ready, because we can't control everything, but we can do the best we can to educate.
Is that
So,
what you're saying, Mike?
so essentially you want to vote no, or do you want to pull it so that we're not voting?
I want to make an adjustment to the recommendation, to the model of the recommendation. I mean, we could
We can
revise the recommendation to be e-learning and in-person learning and let the families determine, but I want it just to be, sorry, everybody. I just want it to be very clear for all the families, like what the dates the kids will be out, that once they go e-learning, they have to stay e-learning till the end of the semester, so that the families just are really prepared for what they're signing up for.
Can I just ask a question? Are you still talking about surveying for that amount of time?
We're
Because-
talking about sending out a notice to students who are in person and asking them if they have travel plans, they want to start quarantine over the holiday season. So rather than us saying, okay, we agree, we're going to shut down the buildings and everybody's e-learning, we're going to say, okay, you guys are still in-person learning. Is there travel plans? Do you need to self-quarantine because you're going to see grandma and spend the holiday with her? This is the chance to opt out and to go e-learning through the holiday season, through, I believe, the end of January, which is really making sure those dates are known. So we're just kind of revising it so that the parents still have a choice what meets their needs.
And that would be a quick turnaround time, so.
Yes, that survey would be, do you
That
want to go remote?
That option's available now.
And that's what I said, we're just renewing it.
But what I'm saying is, if we survey the parents to find that out, they have that option all along. They could, at any point in time, they can go from in-person to remote. So they could do that tomorrow if they wanted to. So
Yes, they
to
could.
survey that, I don't see what the point of the survey would be, because they can already do that. And if they want to do that, they will do that over break anyway.
And I guess part of that, Scott, is what we're looking for is the people who do have travel plans and making sure that we do the right thing for all the kids and bring awareness to this. This meeting, the reason Julie wanted it on the agenda was so that if we were to shut down, the parents would be prepared. And I think in lieu of that, kind of we're taking a right turn and going, okay, yes, we want families to know if this is their option and exactly what it entails. So these are the situations in which we're requesting basically people to opt out of in-person learning if they have a qualifying event, such as a vacation plan, such as grandma coming to town, them going to grandma's house.
Correct.
That's the difference, is we're asking them to self-identify and take themselves out of the classroom for the safety of all kids.
Go with that because again, we can go with that because I mean that obviously puts it back onto the families to look. This is a serious thing, and we don't want to close schools. We don't want to make people have to choose between their job and their kid. So I mean, again, serious stuff here. If you guys want to go on that vacation, that's fine. Go take that vacation, but we're going to give you this option again. Please take this option, I guess is what we're going to read it. And by doing the survey, it helps you guys get those numbers quicker to pivot.
They would just fill it out if they wanted to.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Right.
But again, it's just putting that general statement out. Look, here's how serious it is. We're talking about closing school for everybody. Please, if you're going to go to Florida, you're going to go to see grandma, you're going to go do all these other things. That, hey, free, go do what you need to do. But again, please take this other choice so we don't have to close schools for everybody.
Right. And this survey essentially is so that our staff can prepare for what's to come, so that one day, like the day before Thanksgiving, they don't get 50 calls of people saying, I'm going e-learning tomorrow, and then everybody's on Thanksgiving break. So it just gives our administration team an opportunity to prepare for it.
Yeah, whatever gonna leave that.
Yeah.
And kind of just puts the reminder to them that they have a responsibility if they're sending their kids to in person. And a reminder that at any moment we cannot have enough staff to cover, and we will be shutting classes down. And we won't have the choice of which classes are going to be shut down, so it can affect anyone.
Can you keep us abreast on the unfilled absent rate? Because that freaks me out.
Yeah,
That is very high.
All right. Yeah, no, that's, thank you.
This is a volunteer position. I will fill out any paperwork you need, but I'm volunteering my time. I don't want to get paid for, I think this is part of our role as a board member. If you need a teacher, call either one of us.
Sounds good.
Okay.
There's probably 200 people out there listening tonight. So
Oh,
there
I'm
you go.
sorry, everybody. Mine was not on mute. Hey, if you've got a degree out there, we need teachers right now.
So we're looking at modifying the recommendation.
I don't even know.
Or do we
if
even
it's
need
I
to-
don't even think we have to modify it. I think
No.
it's just that we agree that we'll put something out there.
Yeah, because we're not
Yeah.
changing.
Some information to the parents and the business.
We won't vote on it.
I don't think we need to vote, because we're really not changing anything. We're just renewing it, reevaluating it.
Yep.
And it's still parent control, so I don't think we need a vote. Do we need a consensus that that's what we're gonna do, that we're gonna remove the voting item?
Probably.
So I would take a consensus to remove the item and continue with the plan in place.
Not an update of letting people know.
But wouldn't it just make sense to just take the vote and vote no?
No, we don't want to
We
do
don't
that.
want to remove.
All right, so I take consensus to remove F12 for the approval for the district-wide fully learning plan between the dates of November 2023 and January 15th, 2021. Jill? How you guys have
Yes, remove.
Red dot at the bottom.
Yes. We got a long way to go yet. Yes.
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 Do we also want to decide if we want to hold the EOS schools until after tomorrow's meeting? As Patty requested that, so she can get more information, and those who are at that meeting get more information before we take the final vote.
My question is when do they do this work? And I mean, if we wait one more time, are we gonna be behind the 8 ball, or we got plenty of time?
We're already behind. But we've just been waiting for word from the board. I just got an email this morning from EOS asking if we will be ready to go. We're just waiting for one word yet.
And I guess, I don't know if you want to have the discussion or not. My big thing is I kind of summarized the numbers that I already have. And I mean, if we vote on it, my vote would be no, not to pass it, because I feel like the standard at which they're measuring success is not a good standard. It's not a good educational standard. I don't think getting someone into an AP class and accepting a D is the measure that we want to set for our students. I think that we want more. So that would just be my opinion and my
And I want to go on record to say.
You're
that
muted, Julie.
I would on record to say that our standard is not getting them into class to get a D. Our standard is to get them in the class to succeed. And will some students get a D? Possibly. But most of, but our goal is to make sure that they get the class and they do well in it.
And my opinion is coming from 721 tests being taken, and it's in the 200s for a pass rate. So to me, I think we need to do more, and I don't think that EOS is giving us enough and setting our kids up for real success. Because if we tell someone you can do this and you're ready for an AP class, and we register them for that AP class, and they take the test and they're one of the 300 kids who don't pass it, have we just discouraged that kid? Have we
No.
turned them the opposite direction?
No,
So
actually, we're giving them experiences that are helping them with their life.
Right.
So just because you're seeing not a college credit pass, you're not giving them the credit for everything that they're doing in the class. Reading some of the comments that the students have made and about how the life lessons that they've learned and taken out of it is unvaluable, because you can't put a dollar on that. So what I'm saying is, like, you see a number that says, all right, so many of them aren't getting college credit, but I'm seeing the number that before we had this, it was in the hundreds or low 90s, and we're already up to the 200 and some. I don't know the numbers exactly, but it's still going up, and it's going up at a good clip. I mean, it's not incremental changes. It's actually increasing exponentially.
Yeah, and I guess it really is a matter of how we're looking at the data, and we can have different standards. And I think that's what it's a matter of, is just having a different standard.
I'm just saying that these same students are passing the class over national average. And with that, they're also getting these experiences to take those classes, take those life lessons in other classes. So just because they're not getting an A in AP, their GPAs are actually going up in other classes. So it is an overall benefit.
Yeah. And what I'm looking at is, like, when I looked at the graph today, it's almost misleading, because it shows a graph of 0 to 3 when it's actually should be 0 to 5. So on a scale of 0 to 5, the highest our kids are doing is 2.75. So that's where I'm looking at it. And I show me all 5, show me that we're, at about 2.75 out of 5.
Well, the kids need a 3 to pass to get the college.
And like I said, in that chart, I didn't see anybody hitting 3s. That's my concern.
Average.
They're not hitting 3s. And if they need a 3 to pass, and you're only showing me 0 to 3, and it really should be 0 to 5, and nobody's hitting 3, and you're saying 3 is to pass.
That's the average.
That's-
That's
Yeah,
the number.
those are averages. That's not how many students are getting each of those different.
Well, but even looking at the averages, the average is below 3.
Okay.
So
And then
that's,
we look, yeah. And
that-
I mean,
that's
we
just-
could go round and round.
yeah,
But the point is that we're exceeding the national average.
and I don't
with all
even
of
know
our
what the
kids.
national average is. I'm focused on district average, and that's the numbers that I focused on. So you guys can make the decision if you want to vote on it, if you want to, I'm good either way. Mr. Sterling's good either way, so.
This is for the
EOS.
Well, I guess we'll take consensus on that and forward. Jill. I'll take.
When you look at when you look at the data, we've been using them for 4 years, and we did have almost 100 more students total passing between 16 to 17. And then we've kind of just been give or take 5 students for these past 4 years. It's like we had that first year of growth, but then just that solid line. I don't know. I need to look at this a little more. I would wait until after tomorrow.
Evelyn.
I agree.
sure you guys are aware, that report is on the education committee agenda for tomorrow.
Okay, we'll pull it.
You wanna finish the consent?
Oh, yes. Yes.
Pull it, please. Well, pull it, please.
Mike?
Was that a no?
All right, so we will,
I believe that was a no from Mike.
we
We
will
will discuss it at tomorrow's education committee meeting and bring it to the next meeting.
You don't have to be sorry. You're good.
Okay, that ends my report.
Okay. That's why we had more information. No, you're good. That's what we do. We get more information and make decisions.
Okay, we'll move on to consent items. Can I get a motion to approve the personnel agenda with the addendum?
Motion.
Second.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Can I get a motion, a second, to approve resolution declaring surplus property?
Motion, second. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Can I get a motion? We're pulling 12B, right? Can I get a motion, a second, to approve the partnership agreement with Common Light? Common Lit, a formative insight program for English language arts grades 3 through 12 for a total cost of $3,600 paid with the Title III funds.
Motion.
Second.
Aye.
Mrs. Brogan? I mean, Jill
Aye.
Brogan? Mrs. Meeks, aye. Mrs. Brogan?
Aye.
Mrs. Lawrence? Aye.
Aye.
Can I get a motion, a second, to approve the estimated annual 2020 tax levy? Oh, I missed it. I'm sorry, 12D. Can I get a motion and a second to approve an additional contract with Sunbelt Staffing Vocal Vision for teletherapists for speech pathology services at a minimum of 37.5 hours per week for 12 weeks at a total cost of $40,500 for the FY21 school year?
Motion.
Jill Brogan?
Aye.
Mrs. Meeks, aye. Mrs. Brogan?
Aye.
Mrs. Lawrence?
Aye.
Mr. Sterling?
Aye.
Can I get a motion and a second to approve the estimated annual 2020 tax levy?
Motion.
Second.
Jill Brogan?
Aye.
Mrs. Meeks, aye. Mrs. Brogan?
Aye.
Mrs. Lawrence?
Aye.
Mr. Sterling?
Aye.
No other announcements or discussions? Take a motion to adjourn to go into motion to go into executive session to discuss employment of personnel in pending litigation.
Motion.
Second.
Meeks, aye. Mrs. Brogan?
Aye.
Mrs. Lawrence?
Aye.
Mr. Sterling?
Aye.
Jill Brogan?
Aye.
Yes.
Yes. Yes. We're gonna go, you guys. Patty, Mike, we're gonna go straight into close so we can go back to open for the voting item and then back. Yep. And a second for the approval of the settlement agreement as discussed in closed session.
Motion?
Second.
Mrs. Lawrence?
Aye.
Mr. Sterling?
Aye.
Bill Brogan?
Aye.
Me? Aye. Mrs. Brogan?
Aye. Patty was first. But she don't have her computer on.
Don't?
Yeah, it's on.
Sterling. Or no, I'm sorry, Jill was second.
Yes.
Thank you.
Now you need a motion second, go back and close session for those two reasons. Or for employment. purposes.
Yes. I need a motion and a second to go back into closed session for employment of personnel. Motion.
Second?
Mrs. Lawrence?
Aye.
Mr. Sterling?
Aye.
Bill Brogan?
Aye.
Mrs. Meeks? Oh, aye. I was laughing at Mike, I'm sorry. Mrs. Brogan?
Aye.
Okay.
Okay, guys, we'll take a 5-minute recess.
Bye, everybody.
And then